To fully appreciate this Sikha, it would be useful to first learn the preceding Sikha, which is Toldos Gimel. This will be a mixture of a little bit of arithmetic and philosophy with a powerful lesson about the expectations that we should have for ourselves and for others. All learnt from our forefather Yitzchak and about how he was concerned as to his lifespan. And that all starts from these words. When commenting on the words in unser parasha, in our parasha, that say, Yitzchak says, I don't know when I'm going to pass away. Sagt Rashi. Rashi quotes as follows. Rabbi ben Korcha taught us, if a person reaches the lifespan of their parents, Yid'ag, they should start to be concerned about their own lifespan. That there's a possibility of their lifespan being 5 years shorter, or possibly 5 years longer than their parents. Therefore, Yitzchak ben Kufchav Gimel, at this stage, Yitzchak was 123 years old. Omar, so he said, Shema leperek imi ani megia. Maybe I'm only destined to live to the outer edge of my mother's lifespan. V'hi bas kufchav zayin meisa. She passed away at 127. V'hareni ben heishanim samech leperek. I'm within the 5-year range of that age bracket. Lefichach lo yadaitu yomoisi. Therefore, I don't know what my lifespan is. Shema leperek imi. Maybe it's modeled after my mother's lifespan. Shema leperek abba, or maybe after my father's lifespan. Okay, Daf Mashtain. 2 questions on Rashi. Number 1, why does Rashi have to get into this conversation at all? Surely the pasuk told us Yitzchak is old. That's why he's thinking about these things. It's natural. Why does Rashi have to seek an explanation to explain why Yitzchak is questioning the possibility of how long he may live? When Yitzchak himself has told you in the pasuk why he's thinking about these things. Vayomer, he says, I've grown old. Ich bin alt geworden. And therefore I'm wondering now about lifespan, because that's a natural thing that happens to a person at that age, and you wonder. Number 2, a more technical question for those who are familiar with Rashi's methodology, where he doesn't usually quote a name unless it's relevant. Basically, darf Rashi bringen dem Nomen von dem Baal HaMaimer. Why does Rashi have to tell us what's Rabbi ben Korcha? Was ist da nicht klar oder nicht glattig in dem Pirush? What is unclear or not so smooth in his commentary? Was durch die Idee, as dem Pirush hat gesagt, Rabbi ben Korcha, that once we know that the person who taught it was Rabbi ben Korcha, then wird es werden klar und verständig, we'll be able to understand exactly what he was telling us. So, in order to understand this, let's go back one step and understand something unique about Yitzchak's life. So the explanation is in the Friedrich Seder state, the previous parasha already told us that the Eibishter had blessed Yitzchak. Now there's a technical reason why that is. Rashi explains that Nisari Avram Nevoreches Yitzchak. Avram Avinu himself was afraid to give a bracha to Yitzchak because he anticipated that Yitzchak would give rise to Esav, and who wants to give a bracha to him? So therefore Avram Avinu deferred, and he said, let he who is the master of all blessings choose who he prefers to bless. Therefore, that's why the Eibishter blessed Yitzchak Avinu. Okay, so the reason why he gave him the bracha is not the big focus of what we're going to discuss. Instead, a very simple question. If that's what happened, that Yitzchak was blessed by Hashem, then straight away we have a question in our pasuk. Seeing as Yitzchak was blessed directly from Hashem, not through any intermediary, he was blessed by the one who is in charge of and manages all brachas that exist. Says surely within Hashem's infinite bracha, there is also the bracha for long life. So had Yitzchak nicht gedacht, betrachten wegen Moise. He didn't have to start thinking about his age in Alter von 123 Jahr when he's 123 years old. It's not the time to worry about it yet. You've got the Eibishter's bracha, which surely includes the bracha of long life. And just to add proof to this, Avram and Sarah, his parents, Avram and Sarah, were also blessed by Hashem. Maybe 123 years, and they both lived beyond 123 years. So that's the burning question over here. Yes, of course Yitzchak Avinu says he's old, but why is that even relevant? He has the Eibishter's bracha, that should be good enough. The Rebbe zogt Rashi, so therefore Rashi has to explain. As Yitzchak's concern hat sich genommen, der Fun came from another angle. Was degreicht dem Älter, was ist abgeruckt 5 Jahre von seiner Mutters Petira. Because he had now reached the age that is 5 years off his mother's lifespan, und mit hinein aus Kante hat gemeint nicht der Altkeit. When he says I've grown old, he doesn't mean I've grown old simply. Nor aber stimmten älter, I've reached a specific, unique age, was verbunden mit Perek Imoy, the age that is associated with his mother's lifespan. Therefore, he's starting to think, I have to think about these things. Das geht doch aber very nicht recht. You can come out with a perspective over here that something doesn't seem right. Wie stimmt der Klal? So we've just said that the principle is you've got 5 years on either side of a parent's lifespan where a person should consider their own lifespan. Now, wie bald Yitzchak ad lepel gelebt 180 Jahre, we know the end of the story. We have the benefit of hindsight. We know that Yitzchak lives to 180 years. Asach mer wie 5 Jahre samach lepirke von seiner Mutter. That's a lot more than being within 5 years of his mother's passing. So what's going on over here? Yitzchak Avinu is worried already 5 years earlier than Sarah Imenu passed away, but he has the Eibishter's bracha, and we know the bracha actually pans out because he lives to 180. So what's going on over here? So Bavontes Rashi, that's what Rashi wants to explain. As in dem Seinen Faran Eineka Ifanim, there are variables of how exactly a person's lifespan might be determined. One set of variables is Finuf Yor Far oder noch Per Gavoisav. There's the one possibility that either the measure is 5 years younger than the parent or 5 years older than the parent. That's one set of variables. The other set of variables is on in Perek Avoisav Gufa Meintes or the Perek Imoy or the Perek Aviv. The other set of variables is, do you measure against a father's lifespan or against a mother's lifespan? So Yitzchak has 4 possible outcomes to consider. By Yitzchak, was hat gelebt 180 Jahre. Now that we know the end of the story, that Yitzchak lived to 180 years, is the Pearl gewend offen from 5 Jahre noch Perek Aviv. Then we know that he got the best variable, 5 years beyond his father's lifespan. What was he entertaining as a possibility? 5 years earlier than his mother's lifespan. 2 polar opposites. So his concern starts on one end of the spectrum, and his life extends to the exact opposite end of the spectrum. That's what Rashi is explaining to us. But there's still something we've got to understand. Rashi is this mevorim mit seinem Pirish, even after Rashi's explanation, bleibt noch als schwer die Kasche. There's still a really powerful question over here. Der Eibishter blessed him. The bracha was der Eibishter hat gebencht Yitzchaken, the bracha that the Eibishter gave to Yitzchak, hat doch gewiss gebracht a hisofo in seine prote hachayim. We all assume that if the Eibishter benched Yitzchak, then areas of his life were in some way enhanced because of that bracha. If that's true, on havada is etzem achayim gufa. If details within his life were enhanced, surely his life itself was enhanced. In other words, aisofin arichus yomim. Surely he was given a longer lifespan as one of those brachas. Now, if his lifespan was extended, what that means is it had to have been longer than what nature would have dictated. Now starts the mathematical element of the Sikha. If Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha tells us that the natural way is that a person lives within a 5-year range on either side of their parents', I guess a 10-year range, 5 years on either side of their parents' lifespan, that's the norm. So doch die Bracha, was der Eibishter hat Yitzchak gebencht, then the Bracha that Yitzchak got, im sicher zugegeben mehr wie 12 Jahren von Perek Avoisav, should surely have added more years than what is in the natural range of the parents' age bracket. So therefore, stellt sich der Shaila. Let's do the maths. It's going to raise a question. First obvious question is simple mathematics. If Yitzchak has a bracha from Hashem, he should live longer than 180 years. Because to live 180 years is not is part of the natural process. The possibility of 5 years longer than his father who lived to 175. So wo ist die Zukunft von Arichas Yomim, was darf kommen mit Zabrichas Hashem? Where are the additional years that he should have received having been blessed by Hashem? Question 1. Based on someone come and fragen euch them, and then you can ask the question on the other end of the spectrum. Was 123 Jahre hat schon Yitzchak gesagt, lo yadaiti yom moisi. The fact that from Yitzchak's perspective, when he hits 123 years, he's already worried. Bald, dass das Jahren, was hat wenigsten gedarf leben, ich leiten sei der Roge beteva. 123 years is the minimum lifespan that he could have had according to the natural process. Mit 5 Jahren winziger für die kids von Perek Avosav, because that would equate to 5 years shorter than the shorter of the two lifespans of his parents. But what about the bracha then? The bracha hat doch sicher etwas zugegeben zu die Jahren. Surely the bracha had to add something to that. Und für was hat zu 123 Jahren schon gesagt, lo yadaiti yom moisi? Why is Yitzchak already saying at 123 years? I don't know. Could happen any day. Can't. 123 years is the natural order. He has to have at least some surplus from Hashem's bracha. So in order to answer that question, we have to consider what was the natural, not the real lifespan of Avram and Sarah. What was their natural lifespan? The Bir in the explanation is, B'shas Avram is alt given knapp 100 Jahre. When Avram Avinu was exactly 100 years old. When Sarah knapp 90 Jahre. Sarah was 90 years old. Not only does the Torah record that they were old, but they had full days. That implies they had lived a complete lifespan. The complete lifespan allocated for them had already been filled. They've already gone through all of their days. All of the days of their lives that were preordained for them. And das was bepel haben sie gelebt länger. The fact that Avram Avinu lived another 75 years and Sarah Imenu lived another 37 years, that's because the Eibishter blessed them. But their natural lifespan was 190 years respectively. That's their natural lifespan. So now if you want to use Rabbi Yeshua and Korcha's process, his theory, so then it's 5 years on either side of their natural lifespan. As far as the natural process is concerned, on the bracha von Eibishter without Hashem's intervention and bracha, hat Yitzchak zu 105 Jahren schon der Greiche dem Herzen älter, wie das ist mit Perek Avosav. Then had Yitzchak Avinu lived to 105, according to nature, he's now hit the ceiling of what nature has to offer. 5 years beyond the natural lifespan of his father. Means 5 Jahre mehr wie die 100 Jahre, was seinen bestimmt on der Brache von seinem Vater. He's 5 years beyond the years that were allocated to his father. From Perek Avosav meint Jahre, was seinen sehr Perek. When we use the expression Perek Avosav lifespan, that means natural lifespan. Nicht the Brache von Bala Brachas, without considering some supernatural intervention from Hashem, who is in charge of all of the Brachas, and therefore can do differently. So therefore, we can look at this now from two perspectives. The perspective of objective truth and the perspective of Yitzchak's concerns. Whether we look from the perspective of objective truth, or from the perspective of Yitzchak's concerns, Yitzchak actually already has many bonus years. Und dieselbe Zolljahren, was Eibishter's Bracha hat zugegeben seinem Vater. And what's interesting is, they actually land up being the same amount of additional years as his parents had. Before let's look at the story practically, from the perspective of truth, objective truth. Hat Yitzchak gelebt 180 Jahre. Yitzchak lived to 180. Und in dem hat die Bracha gehabt Moshe gewähnt, 75 Jahre auf die 105 Jahre, was wollte herrschen der Griechen, sagt sie der Rogel. So nature says Avram Avinu lives to 100. That means Yitzchak's maximum possible lifespan is 105. But he actually lives to 180. That means he's got 75 bonus years. Right? Because mit 5 Jahren mehr von seinem Vater ist bestimmt 100 Jahre. To live to 105 would have been the natural range if his father's lifespan is 100 years. Und das ist Punkt derselben Jahren, was die Bracha hat zugegeben seinem Vater Avram. So to add 100 from 105 to 180, to add 75 years is exactly the same amount of additional years that Avram Avinu had. Was hat gelebt 175 Jahre, mit 75 Jahren mehr wie von die bestimmte 100 Kanal. So Avram Avinu lived 175, that's 75 additional years. And Yitzchak lives 180, that's also 75 additional years. That's from the perspective of objective truth. But the same kind of thing applies when you look from the perspective of Yitzchak's concerns. Was hat Cheshish gewähnt, Tome seine Jahre mit 5 Jahren weniger von Perek Imi, because Yitzchak was concerned that maybe the allocation given to him would be 5 years less than his mother's lifespan. Is the cheshma was there, then you work the maths a little differently, and you come out with a similar conclusion that he did have bonus years. Die Bracha hat ihm schon mäßig gewähnt, dieselbe Zoll Jahre mit die Bracha zugeben seiner Mutter. From that perspective, he's already had as many extra years as Meno had. Remember, the objective truth looks at what actually happened. Yitzchak's concerns tells us what he's thinking. He's thinking, I've had as many additional years at this point as my mother had in her whole life. Because Sarah's Bashim to Yoren seine gewesen 90. Sarah's natural lifespan was 90 years. Und durch der Bracha hat sie gelebt 127 Jahre. Because of the Eibish's Bracha, she lives all the way to 127, which is 37 Jahre mehr. An extra 37 years. And now say, Yitzchak gelebt lefi dai toi. So Yitzchak in his mind says, same thing's going to happen to me. And on the Bracha, if I didn't have Hashem's Bracha, please, 85 Jahre, then I would live 5 years less than my mother's lifespan. That's 85. Mit 5 Jahren weniger für seine Mutter. 5 years less than his mother's lifespan. And then on Punkt wie zu seiner Mutter hat ihm die Brache zugeben nach 37 Jahren. And then you think, just like his mother Sarah was gifted with an extra 37 years of Hashem's Brache, hat der Erfahrung gegeben sein nach 122 Jahren zu 123 Jahren. So when he crosses over from 120 to 123 years, he says, I've now finished 37 bonus years from what could have been the shortest lifespan. Now I've got to start to think about end-of-life issues. Still, one more problem with this. These lifespans are not as clear as we think. So, benoch als da Schwierigkeit. Rashi schreibt früher, Rashi's already told us that Avraham Avinu didn't live his full lifespan. As Avraham is nifte geworden 5 Jahre vor der Zeit mit dem Eibischen zweite Bruch zu Avraham, that after the Eibischter blessed Avraham Avinu to live a tremendously long life, he actually lived 5 years shorter than that brocha allocation. When Hashem said to him, Tovoi, Beseva Tova, that he would come to his ancestors in a ripe old age, it didn't really happen. It was reduced by 5 years. Why? So you should not have to witness Esav degrading into the kind of person he became. Heint. If Hashem's brocha to Avraham Avinu should have extended his life from 100 to 180, and then it was reduced 5 because of Esav, then logic says Yitzchak had the same bracha, und zusammen mit die 5 Jahren mehr von Perek Aviv with the potential of 5 extra years, hat gedacht leben 185 Jahre und nicht bloß 180 Jahre. He should have lived 185, not 180. Avraham Avinu should have lived 180, and then 5 years beyond that should be 185. Und der Mann verrief dem is Rashi Meramis in dem zugeben in ihm Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha to answer that. Rashi says, well, look who's talking. It's Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. If you know Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha and his views on lifespan, you'll appreciate exactly why it is that Yitzchak didn't manage 185 years. Gemara wird erzählt, wegen erzählt neun, bei welchem hat gefragt, bei Merach der Yomim, the Gemara Megillah tells us that there were a whole group of Tanoim who were questioned by their students, what is the secret of your long life? Und jeder von sie hat angegeben etliche Sachen, in welche es gewinn bei uns abgeht. So each one of them responded with a specific set of behaviors that they were very, very careful about. And each one attributed their long life to that set of behaviors. So one of the people who was asked this question about long life was Rabbi Shimon Karcha. On Erot Ruf geantwortet, his answer was, I never gazed at the face or the appearance, the figure of a wicked man. In other words, unlike some of the other Tanoim who said there were a number of things that they did right and therefore they lived long, he put it down to one thing. He was always so careful not to look with intention at the figure of a wicked person. So what's Rabbi Shimon Karcha teaching us? We see, as Rabbi Shimon Karcha halt, Rabbi Shimon Karcha's view is, as das sich von Estaklos b'fnei Adam Rasha allein, that just avoiding looking at the face of a bad person equates to many other types of behaviors that all contribute to long life. And therefore, you can always extrapolate out of the positive what the negative would be. If a person does gaze at the face of a wicked person, it diminishes their lifespan. Now, anybody who knows about Yitzchak will know exactly where this is headed. That explains why Yitzchak only lived 180 years, not an additional 5 years past his father. Because because he did not avoid looking at Esav Harasha's face. And that's something that diminishes a lifespan. Yes, Yitzchak didn't realize perhaps the extent of Esav's wickedness. Still had an effect. If a person doesn't know that smoking is bad for them, it's still bad for them. So it had an effect. As von die 185 Jahren, was hat gedacht leben, and out of the 185 years that he should have lived, so während der Samach der Perek Aviv 5 Jahr, 5 years were reduced and deducted. Und der Birchas Hashem hat aufgetan, Marich Yamim sein wie Perek Aviv, and that caused him to only live the extent of his father's lifespan and not beyond. So, what lesson can we take from this? A really interesting lesson. Rashi is within Rashi, there's the wine of Torah, the beauty, the depth of Torah. Das, was Yitzchak hat mehr gehabt als seine Jahren sein mit 5 Jahren weniger von Perek Imoi. Why is it that Yitzchak naturally gravitated to the assumption that his lifespan would be shorter than his parents, and out of the two parents, it would be shorter than the shorter lifespan? Why? Why does he go that way? The least of what nature had to offer. Und noch mehr. In Perek Imoi hat gerechnet bloß die 127 Jahre, was Sarah hat gelebt befeuert. Even when considering his mother's age, he only considered how much she actually lived. Nicht geguckt auf dem, without taking into consideration, was sie ist BMS given Basher zu leben länger, that she was actually intended with Hashem's brachas to live considerably longer, but because of either the shock, if you want to look at it superficially, or the incredible, overwhelming spiritual inspiration of the Akedah, Hashem left her. And Yitzchak doesn't even consider that there was an anomaly. He says that's the lifespan. So he looks for the absolute minimum possible lifespan. Why? Therefore, the deeper reason is because you got to know who Yitzchak is. Yitzchak is the representative of Gevurah. Gevurah is, you always look at the most narrow. You always have, so to speak, the least expectations. You always hold off on idealistic approaches and you focus on the pragmatic. So how does Yitzchak process anything that's going on in the world, or look at anything in the world through the lens of Gevurah? That is how Yitzchak conducted himself with regards to himself. But when it was time to give somebody else a bracha, or is sein bracha given von herzen von hepech Gevurah va tzimtzum? Giving a bracha, no tzimtzum over here, no Gevurah, no restraint, no withholding, no limitations. It's time to give a bracha. So at Chelek ben side in yonim von shamayim, side in yonim von aretz. It's a bracha that covers the full spectrum, from the highest of the high, the heavens, all the way down to the earth. And out of heaven, it's the dew of heaven. Out of the earth, it's the fat of the earth. The type of brachas that exceed the brachas Yaakov gave his children and Moshe gave the Jewish people. And that teaches us a phenomenal lesson in our avodah. Was Yadidin is Yitzchak einer von seinen Oves. By being Jewish means that Yitzchak Avinu is one of our forefathers. Und hat der Fall von seinen Yonim, which means we've inherited some of Yitzchak's abilities or attitudes. So therefore the message is, even if you're the kind of Jew who is a Gevurah Jew, focused, disciplined, high expectations of self, that's why he's so strict. That's how you treat yourself. But when it's time to deal with another person, another Jew, then it's all chesed, kindness, tolerance, acceptance, giving. You're supposed to engage with that person in the best way possible. And give him goodness in a broad, open, generous way, without any limits or restrictions, till you reach the highest of the high, the dew of heaven, the fat of the earth. That's how we deal with somebody else. You want to be strict with yourself. For everybody else, goodness, kindness, love, and giving. And please God, the Eibishter reciprocates in kind.